Welcome to Off the Scale, the podcast where we dive deep into the journeys of the world's top short-term rental property managers. Join us as we uncover their secrets to scaling success, from pivotal milestones to the lessons learned through mistakes and triumphs. Hosted by Scale family members Damien Sheridan, Gianpaolo Vieiro, and Louise Brace. Off the Scale reveals what drives these leaders each day and the indispensable tools that propelled them to the top. Tune in for inspiring stories, actionable insights, and the ultimate blueprint for scaling your own short-term rental business.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Off the Scale podcast, in which we interview the leading short-term property managers from around the world. I'm Louise Brace, and today I'm delighted to introduce Boris Pavlov from Flataway. Welcome, Boris, and thank you for joining me today. I know you've been jumping from video meets, so I totally appreciate your time.
Thank you, Louise, and thanks so much for having me. Super excited to be here. I was on a call with other people from your team discussing an event that's upcoming, but I guess we can talk about that later.
Oh, we are going to talk about that later on, absolutely. So, Boris, together with your Flataway team, you've really taken the concept of accommodation for remote workers and digital nomads to a level way above your standard serviced accommodation provider. But we're going to talk about that later. Let's start from the very beginning. Let's go right back to how you started in the short-term rentals world.
Okay. Well, I started by accident, to be honest. I was involved in banking back in the day. I spent quite a lot of time in Paris, in New York, in London. Then I got tired of it and I wanted to start something on my own. And I had a startup idea, which was again in the travel space, but had nothing to do with short-term rentals. So I decided to quit my job in London, but I had signed this long-term lease on an apartment in London, which I couldn't break. So I had to figure out a way because I was leaving my job. So I had to basically live off my savings. So I had to figure out a way, how do I do that without, paying rent for an apartment in London, which is quite expensive.
It is.
So I found a UK-based property management company that was end of 2016. Found a company that was like, okay, Boris, you can go back home to Bulgaria. It's much cheaper to live there, and that's what I wanted to do. And we'll take care of your flat here in London. We'll just rent it out short term, by Airbnb, and we're pretty sure you're gonna make enough money to pay rent. So the owner agreed, and essentially I sublet the apartment for about 5 months in the UK with the help of that property manager. And I was like, well, I don't have any entrepreneurial experience. And this seems like a very easy business to launch because you don't need an initial investment. I could certainly create an account on Airbnb and list the property there. So I was like, I'm gonna try it out just as a side hustle. And I got this little studio from one of my closest friends' aunts. She was living abroad in Switzerland, so she was like, "I'm not using this studio. You can just try with that." And the studio, in its first month, I just created the account myself. Its first month, it generated like 4 times the long-term rent that she was getting prior to that. And I was like, "Oh wow, that's super interesting." So I created my own website, called the company, established the company, called it Airbnb Manager. First mistake, first out of many. Like, you cannot use Airbnb's trademark as the name of your own brand, obviously. But I didn't know back then. So I set up my own website, started talking to people. It wasn't very popular back then in Bulgaria. Airbnb in general wasn't too popular, so sometimes I had to explain first Airbnb and then what I was doing as a property manager. But very soon I realized it's not that easy, the business. And I reached maybe 10, 15 properties under management, and I was still by myself, a one-man show. I had someone helping me with cleaning, but whenever that person was busy or their kid got sick or something like that, I had to be the one cleaning the apartment. I was checking in guests. I discovered self-check-in later on that year in 2017. But little by little, I started growing the business. It was a very tough year, literally probably the toughest year in my life because I was by myself, managing properties, growing a company without really know how to grow a company or how to, operate my own business. Didn't have a co-founder or anything like that. So I didn't have anyone to rely on. And there were no property managers in Bulgaria. So that was a good thing because there was no competition in the beginning. But at the same time, I had to figure things out on my own.
Yeah.
So I search on the internet, either software that can help me with the management, and I was basically giving a crack at it on my own. So that's how it all started.
Mhm.
Um, and
So,
from there, yeah.
so no, I was going to say, so when you started with that kind of first studio, and you mentioned that, you know, Airbnb and kind of short-term rentals in that moment in Bulgaria were not really kind of known so much. Who were your guests when you kind of had that first studio, or those first 15 or 17 properties? Who were where were they coming from? What were they doing? Why were they staying in short-term rentals?
Well, I actually remember the first ever guest that I hosted at that studio. Yeah, a lovely lady. She was from the US
Uh-huh.
and she was moving to Bulgaria. So she was originally Bulgarian, but she left a long time ago. And now she was retired and she wanted to move back to Bulgaria. And she was using Airbnb. It was quite popular in the US in 2017. So yeah, she was my first guest, but other than that, there was a lot of it was predominantly foreigners. Not a lot of people from Bulgaria were booking domestic stays. Right now, the percentage is around 30% guests are domestic
Mhm.
travelers, but back then it was like 95, mainly from Western Europe and the US.
Uh-huh. Okay. And so basically, so you really, you know, this was a real starting from zero. You know, you had that, you were in London, you had the idea, you took it back to Bulgaria. What kind, as you went from that one studio to kind of, you know, multiple properties, what were your initial ambitions when you started out? Where did you see the company going?
Well, when I started the company, it was supposed to be like a side business,
Right.
not really a side hustle, a
Yeah.
side business. Turned into a lot more than that because as any property manager who's listening right now, we all know that it's a full-time job and even more than a full-time job. It's a 24/7 kind of job.
Yeah.
Then very soon after that, 1 year had passed, I had a vision of scaling the company, not just in Bulgaria,
Mhm.
but also abroad via what somewhat what you could call a franchise model. Uh, I didn't call it a franchise model back then because I didn't really know what a franchise was. Sort of knew, but I built the model pretty much by myself and started off in Bulgaria in 2018 with different cities. I found the right people. So I centralized guest communication, uh, listing creation, homeowner acquisition, homeowner support, all these functions. I centralized them in Sofia, and then in different cities in the country, I found people who could take care of the ground operations, so organized check-ins, cleaning, and maintenance.
Mhm.
So these were essentially contractors, but they're also salespeople because you have to meet a homeowner at the
Yeah.
property when you're onboarding that property.
Yeah.
Luckily, I was able to find the right people. So these regional franchisees started growing and they even started growing a little bit geographically to cover more area, especially on the coast of Bulgaria. We have a beautiful, quite long coast, 350 kilometers, full of beaches. It's lovely. So if anyone's listening and wants to come visit during the summer, it's a great destination. We also have winter resorts. So we scaled throughout Bulgaria, but 2019, we were like, okay, we have a vision, which is we want to scale this company even more. And on top of it, we would like to build our platform, which would be midterm rentals.
Okay.
So we saw the gap, and it was a very interesting niche back in 2019. There's platforms that specialize in this, and they do pretty well. But we wanted to create that midterm rentals platform where the supply comes only from our own franchisees. That was the initial idea, which evolved 100 times since then. Um, so in 2019, we opened a franchise in Bucharest, in Romania. So that was the first international branch of the company, which started very well. But we all know what happened in 2020. It still exists. There is a flat manager in Bucharest as well. It's operating on its own, but it hasn't been able to grow for a number of reasons. But COVID was what literally stopped it in its tracks.
Yeah.
Um,
Were you still work? Was the brand Flat Manager still? It was working across countries, or were you kind of expanding and changing brands at that point?
So the initial idea was to create flat managers around the world.
Yeah.
And for 2020, for the spring of 2020, we had planned a roadshow. We had even sponsors, and I was going to drive around all of Europe in the span of 2 months with a branded car and establish these local offices under franchise agreements where they would become the local flat manager. And then on top of that, we would put the platform for midterm rentals, which would work in sync, of course, with Airbnb booking and the OTAs. So we had the whole roadshow planned, and we even had raised money from angel investors to make that happen. But the roadshow was planned for like May and June of 2020. So did not go as planned. Did not go as planned at all. Something interesting that we did during COVID. The entire team, we moved to the seaside and we found a hotel that was not going to open at all. But it was in a very good location.
Yeah.
And domestic travel was allowed in Bulgaria. So we convinced the owners of that hotel to give it to us and for us to manage it. It's a huge hotel right on the beach, with swimming pools, with restaurants and stuff like that. So completely different. It was an apartment hotel, so the units were technically apartments, but without kitchens, without many things. So it was a completely different kind of product that we were working with. And we did it in a completely different way than a normal hotelier would do it. Everything was different. The manager of the hotel was there. So the owners had sent the manager of the hotel, and she was looking at the things we were doing, and she was like, "No, this is not done in this way. No, you're not supposed to do that. You have to do this and that." We're like, no, let us do things our way. We're short-term rental managers. We know very little about managing hotels, but we understand hospitality. We think we have a good product market fit for this particular hotel because of the location and because of what's going on with COVID. After the summer, the owners of the hotel shared with us that they made more money that summer than the summer before.
Amazing.
Because we were extremely lean. That's how also we made money to survive.
Yeah.
So
you. I mean, you've massively diversified back from the kind of that first studio that you had. So after COVID, what are we talking? 2020. After COVID, then so you'd taken on the hotel. You were looking at obviously your plan to kind of go on the road tour of Europe didn't happen. What did you do after COVID? What was your next step on your kind of journey of short-term rentals?
Yeah, sure. Well, at some point, it became evident that a single company cannot be different things at the same time. So we can't be a property manager, we can't be an OTA, we can't be everything at once.
Yeah.
So we just decided to do a spin-off and to separate the two entities. So the property management company would grow in Bulgaria and in Romania in a very sustainable way. And eventually it got sold this July. It was sold to a large Polish property management company by private equity. So we had an exit. It's the first Bulgarian proptech startup exit. So it was kind of a big deal here in the region. And that's in hindsight, it was a great decision that we decided to separate the two because the Polish property manager, they just bought the property management business, the market leader in Bulgaria by far, with more than 600 units under management, covering pretty much the whole country. So that was a very good decision that we made to separate the two. And then Flataway became a startup in the travel industry, backed by great investors who supported us. So that was beginning of 23. Actually, we finalized the spin-off and we created Flataway with the idea we had in 2019. Create these flight managers, but not operate them ourselves, just provide them with the technology, so property management system, operating system, digital guest guide, the whole stack that we've developed over the years as property managers. So not call it a franchise, call it a partnership. They get the software, and obviously they supply Flataway with properties. Well, first problem, we technically had to convince people to switch PMS, to convince property managers to switch PMS. That's extremely difficult to do.
Well, it depends how happy they are with their PMS.
Yes, but even, I mean, I've spoken to hundreds of property managers a year and a half. I don't know, thousands, probably hundreds. And sometimes, a lot of times, they're unhappy with their PMS. And then I've asked, so why don't you switch? And they're like, so difficult to switch. No, I don't want to switch. I'm just gonna live and suffer, but I'm not switching PMS. So we quickly realized, okay, that's not happening. We need to figure out something else. So we changed our model on the supply side. You don't have to use the PMS that we are offering you. That created some technical issues. Well, on the demand side, we also started experimenting. So we focused on digital nomads, we focused on remote workers, targeting midterm stays. We created what's called subscription living. It's a service whereby, as a digital nomad, remote worker, or anyone actually, you pay a fixed monthly rent and you live anywhere, which sounds amazing, right? I mean, that's awesome.
There, I'm for it.
Yeah, everyone reacts like that. But see, the problem is to get real customer validation, you need to not just get great feedback because everyone's saying, oh, it's amazing, but also to have people buying it. So we have, the moment we launched subscription living, we had our first sale of a subscription living package 2 days after. So it was like that. And obviously it had some traction, but we weren't giving enough value to the property managers we were working with. And since the whole team at Flataway, the whole founding team, we're 4 people, we were all working. And we kind of wanted to do more for property managers. We were constantly hearing complaints from everyone how the large OTAs are protecting the guests. They're siding with the guests. They're not offering any support to the property managers. Just as an example, like Flat Manager company, it's a 600 unit property manager, which makes it pretty big.
Yeah.
And it's the largest one in the region here. We never had an account manager at Airbnb. We never had anyone pay us any attention to us. And we've had problems. And a lot of times Airbnb has sided with the guests on problems which are obvious that we were not at fault, the guest's fault. Or so we had some traction with digital nomads, with remote workers. The platform is operating, but that whole thing where property managers are paying OTAs huge commissions and then they get very little value out of that, and they're never able to establish relationships with guests just because the OTAs only get relationships.
Yeah.
That's always been my game. And I can actually pinpoint the exact moment where, like, okay, we really need to solve this. It was during the due diligence process while we were setting the property management company. We were looking at the amount of money the property management company was paying to the OTAs, and we were like, this is so much money that we pay to get guests that they may return and stay again with us at some point if they come back to Bulgaria, but you probably will not remember or not come back to Bulgaria at all. So we pay so much money to get a guest for one time.
There's no retention.
There's no retention. So we spent some time just brainstorming, just trying to figure out a way. We've done it before in the past, but we couldn't figure it out. And we spent some time looking for the technology that will enable us to do that. And we cracked it. So we're just now launching the new version of Flataway. We literally back in June we scraped everything else. We were supporting the reservations that we had, and we keep supporting the reservations that were made that we have for the future. But we are completely changing what Flataway is. The platform is closing in terms of it's becoming a members-only platform where property managers invite their guests onto the platform. Whenever a property manager invites a guest onto the platform, that guest becomes a guest, a client of that property manager forever.
Yeah.
And whenever the guest travels anywhere in the Flataway network, the property manager benefits financially from that. Whenever that guest books a property which is operated by the property manager who invited them in the first place, there's no commission. So it's exactly the same in the website. You invite your guests over to Flataway, they book your properties, you don't pay anything, just a payment processing fee, which you pay anyway. And then when they travel elsewhere, you receive revenue from that. For the time being, it's a great model, which I'm sure people have thought of. We're not that brilliant. I'm sure other people have thought about this.
You did it. That's the difference. You did it.
We did it thanks to the technology.
Yeah.
So a 200 units property manager can right now list their properties on Flataway before they finish their morning call.
Yeah.
Takes 15 minutes, photos, descriptions, amenities, rate, availability, thing.
Yeah.
With more than 20 of the largest property management systems. 15 minutes. We don't even have a panel where to modify things on your property. No. We filter the properties, we take the ones with the higher ratings, we do some modifications on our site to make sure that the guests are really getting professionally managed properties, highly rated, etc. It's very difficult, and we've created this entire new revenue stream for them.
Yeah.
Which it depends on the location of the property manager, how many properties they have, but as they invite their guests onto the platform, in 18 months, they can be making more money from that than from management.
Sure. Apart from your own tech platform, what software or tech tools would you recommend to property managers or companies that are looking to scale their business?
Okay, well, to begin with, you need to have a system. I'm not going to name particular ones because I don't want to advertise any PMS, but you need a good one.
Yeah.
You definitely need a good one.
Do your research.
Do your research, do demos, make sure that the property management system is also compliant with the local regulations for your base, because in some countries you need to have connectivity with local police. Spain is a very good example for that. So Portugal as well. So that's very important. The property management system that you're using is the single most important thing. After that, depending on the size of the company, if the property management system doesn't have a good operations tool, which is a scheduling tool for cleaners, for maintenance, etc. As you scale above, let's say 40, 50 properties under management, definitely get one. We made a huge mistake as property managers. We decided to develop our own operating system. If we had used the most expensive operating system for 50 years, it would have been cheaper than creating our own. So just a message to all property managers out there. Don't try to build your own software. You're not a software company. You're not a tech company. Just don't do it. It's going to be more expensive.
Yeah.
And there is a PMS out there that can serve you. There's, I don't know, hundreds.
Yeah.
Don't try to build these things on your own. It doesn't make sense. Keep laser focused on what you're doing, which is optimizing guest experience, homeowner revenue, and relationships. Just one more thing that I remember, this is an advice. Don't invest in your direct booking website. That's very controversial. A lot of people are going to hate me for saying that. But I mean, let's be real here. Your direct booking website is for your returning guests and for people who contact you directly through social media or something like that. People are not going to find your website over Airbnb and Booking.com that spend billions in Google. So yes, should you have a direct booking website if you need it for brand recognition, if you have corporate clients, certainly, but don't spend thousands of euros, even some people spend thousands of euros per month on a direct booking website. Not just Flataway, there's also other ways to monetize these returning guests. But yeah, that's a piece of advice which is quite controversial.
Right.
Yeah.
But controversy is good. So, Boris, you've been attending scale shows for the last couple of years. You joined us on stage in Barcelona for what was actually one of my favorite sessions, 2025. You're going to be taking your scale collaboration one step further. So do you want to share with us what you're up to?
Yes, with pleasure. I love the scale events. And the one in Barcelona is my favorite event of the year. So, you know, in our region here, Eastern Europe, short-term rentals are quite popular.
Yeah.
There are property managers, but it seems like nobody's talking about that part of the world. And there are no events here. And then at some point I was talking to JP and Damien, and we were like, let's just organize something for Eastern Europe, see how it goes. So it's going to be a very interesting scale Eastern Europe events, 28th of February. It's going to be winter in Bulgaria, but we're gonna make it very warm and cozy. We've rented the National Palace of Culture, which is an exhibition center right in the city center of Sofia. It's like a historical landmark. We are bringing people not just from Bulgaria, but probably people from all of Eastern Europe.
Yeah.
All the way, Poland, from Greece, from Turkey. It's going to be a one-day event, but yes, people would just come the night before. We're going to have a party, then the event, then another party. Some people I think are staying over the weekend as well. So I really encourage all property managers from the region, even if you're not from the region, if you want to just come and see Sofia. It's a very interesting, vibrant city. Join us at Scale Eastern Europe, and I promise we won't disappoint.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you so much, Boris. It's been an amazing conversation. Thank you to all of those who have tuned into this episode with Boris Pavlov of Flataway. You're listening to the Off the Scale podcast, and we'll see you in the next episode. Thanks so much, Boris.
Thank you for having me. Bye.